I guess with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So do we need, I guess we've all been introduced. So Peg Porteller, I guess I'll let you start off our day. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks, Sue. Heather, any comments for the good of the order?
Sure. Thank you, Peg. I just want to take a second to welcome everybody. This is our second opportunity to be together as a large team with the board and executive team, just to continue in the conversations and really focus in today on some conversations related to how we work together, getting to know one another better, and learning a little bit more about one another's stories. We know that relationships are a key part of everything that we do. And so thank you, Peg, for being here. You've worked with our board in the past, and it is wonderful to see you again. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks. Well, it's always great to be in Sherwood, but then any day is a great day to be in Sherwood, right? The chamber told me to say that, so mission accomplished. Well, I really am thrilled really to be back in Sherwood. And the first thing I should do, and I think I said this to Jim, is to congratulate you all on the successful bond and the results of this building, the high school, everything else that you accomplished. My goodness, to have that kind of community support and then to have the results of that whole effort just is amazing. It's really amazing. So I'm thrilled to be here. And the next time that I come, I am getting into the high school because I have not yet been in there to admire the handiwork. So congratulations to all of you. You know, I haven't been here to work with the board for a little while, but I've always enjoyed being in Sherwood and working with the board. And one of the things that I can tell you, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself in just a minute, that I can tell you about the research in terms of successful school districts is an administrative team that hangs around for a while. I know it might not seem like a big deal, but honestly, it's a big deal. So to have these three faces still here makes a difference to your community and your students. And so I want to congratulate you on that too. You know, I was doing a little research on Sherwood to bring myself up to speed, and you have every reason to be proud of all that you've accomplished. And not just because you successfully passed your bond, but you have indicators of all kinds that are stellar. All of your schools are rated outstanding. There aren't many school districts around the nation that can say that. When I look at your teacher retention, you get teachers and you keep them until they retire, which is pretty amazing. And now that they're not the age they were when you guys hired them, they are kind of retiring. And so it's just amazing to me that you've continued the good reputation, and here you still are, just knocking the socks off of it. So congratulations to board members who have stayed the course, and administrators and teachers who have stayed the course. By way of introduction, I hail from Colorado. You can maybe tell by my accent that I grew up close to Canada because everybody always asks me if I'm from Canada. It must be the way I say my A's or something, but my home state is North Dakota, and I started my teaching career there 51 years ago this fall, which makes me veteran and experienced, but not old. So there you go. And it's been quite a journey. I was a longtime teacher, union leader, administrator, recovering superintendent, and I've had the privilege of doing a lot of things along the way, including in a small world story. I did an interim gig as the executive director of the Colorado School Administrators, and Jim's dad was my mentor when he was at COSA. So isn't that strange that we're all 6 degrees of separation or something? So I've had a beer or two with Ozzy, so there you go. I had the opportunity to do some education policy work for the Regional Educational Lab in Denver, which would be the counterpart to Ed Northwest, who is out here in this Pacific Northwest with Oregon as one of the states they serve. In that capacity, I worked with the 7 governors, the 7 state legislatures, the 7 congressional delegations from the 2 Dakotas, Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas, Wyoming, and Colorado. And that was a wonderful experience. I also had the opportunity to spend a couple of years in higher education, too far removed from kids. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but I just couldn't stay there because, I don't know, I just like K-12. Speaking of which, you're going to get kids on September 8th. Ready or not, they are coming. So some schools in Colorado started like the 2nd week in August. So last week, I happened to be working in one of the local school districts, and the principal had asked me to bring over some resources that he knew I had because we'd worked together for quite a number of years. And Duncan was talking about his kids. So I got to the building about 7:30. Everybody's in masks. And there's a little guy at the door. I'm guessing he was probably 8. And I thought it was really nice. He waited for me and opened the door. It's like, I said, well, thank you, sir. He closes the door. And he looks up at me and he said, so, who are you and what are you doing at my school? And I thought, well, there's security for you. So I said, well, do you know Mr. Gray? Mm-hmm. Do you think he's in the building? Mm-hmm. Do you mind opening the door again? So he opens the door and then he closes it again and he goes, think about how old he was, 8. He goes, so are you his mom? You know, some strange woman coming into the school. He's got to be somebody's mom. And I wanted to say to him, no, I'm only 10 years older than he is, but I didn't. And he actually escorted me to Mr. Gray's office. And I thought, you know, how cool is that? That we get to just spend time with kids, even when they're not ours. So that's just the best. So I'm pleased to be here and pleased to think about the kids that will come back to your district on September 8th. And the 10 of you, 5 executive team members, 5 school board members, will have the opportunity to have those almost 5,000 kids, regardless of the circumstances, have the best year ever. That's why we're here. This team has the responsibility to make sure that those almost 5,000 kids have a great experience in your schools this year, in spite of challenges they didn't ask for and we didn't ask for. And you know what? We'll step up and do it anyway. So I want to talk for just a minute about this team. This team's a pretty important team. And to me, it kind of looks like this. Let's do green. So your community elects 5 representatives to sit at the board table. Here they are. Chairwoman Hecker and the 4 of you, the community sends you to represent them and to make good decisions on behalf of the community. And this isn't just your voting public, this is everybody. It's your taxpayers and your non-taxpayers, your parents who are renters, and the people who don't even have kids in school. They elect you to do a job as a collective group of 5 who partner with this group of 5 to ensure that Sherwood's kids have a great experience year after year after year, so that when they get their diploma in the beautiful new Sherwood High School, that they are ready to embark upon the world regardless of what they choose to do. The board hires the superintendent. How many years have you been here, Dr. Cordy?
This is the beginning of my 12th year.
Already?
Yeah,
How can that be?
I don't
Wow.
know.
Wow, good deal. It doesn't. So the superintendent has helpers, lieutenants, and here they are. By the way, I work with a lot of teams all over the country. This is about as good a team as it gets. Seriously. I've had beers with Gary too. Enjoyed every one of them because we've talked a lot about curriculum and instruction over the years. So this group of people right here, U10, oversee a multi-million-dollar organization. Think about that. A multi-million-dollar company with 500 employees. That's a heavy-duty responsibility. Wow. The reason we do all of what we do are those 4,800 plus kids that attend schools in all of your buildings. And as I have worked with Heather over the years, and I hope that for board members, I hope that this is instructive. There are 8 primary functions of a school district that end up at her feet, in her lap, with the help of these people and the people who report to them. And I want to go over them very quickly because it's really important. So the first function is you have physical assets that you, the board members, have in your portfolio. You own land, you own buildings, so buildings and grounds. And somebody has to oversee all of that. Somebody has to make sure they're safe, they're clean, they're taken care of, the parking lots are striped, on and on and on. So that's a big function. Another big function is the business office. You have a budget of 60 million, Heather? Just shy of $60 million. That means somebody's got to track the revenues and expenses. Somebody's got to take care of payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, W-2s, W-9s. So this is a huge function of any school district, particularly important in your case because these are public dollars. So you're held to even greater scrutiny than the Dairy Queen down the road or somebody else. Then we have a function called auxiliary services. That is transportation, food service, custodial. I'm just going to hazard a guess and say that your payroll, Heather, is probably among the largest payrolls in the community. You probably run the largest restaurant in town. You probably have the largest taxi service in town with your buses. So you board members, this is a lot to pay attention to. I mean, it's big when you think about it, everything that you do. And then we've got this big piece here called HR that Steve oversees. Who gets hired? Who's qualified to do what? How do people get evaluated? Whether or not teachers are retained, whether or not people have the right qualifications for what they're supposed to be doing for the district. And then there is a big one called communication. Somebody has to communicate with parents, with staff. So I'm talking internal communication, external communication. That is a big one for any district, anywhere, let alone one of your size. Who communicates with whom about what? That's big. What's the message? What messages are the 10 of you communicating to your employees, to the general public, to ODE, to everybody? I've worked with ODE too, by the way. Then you've got technology. And by that, I mean phone systems, hardware and software, security systems, cameras, microphone systems, everything. Somebody's got to tend to all of those things in every building, everywhere across your district. And who's doing that? Then you've got legal and policy. If you're like any other school district with whom I work, you have, if you printed out all of your policies, a hernia producing policy binder. We have a lot of things we have to pay attention to, and a lot we're legally held responsible for. And then around all of this sits curriculum and instruction and staff development and assessment. Gary's portfolio. So that when somebody hands off a kindergartner to any one of your buildings, Heather and Gary can look that mom and dad in the eye and say, yep, your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, however, kindergartners, however old kindergartners are when they start here, that they have a shot of learning everything that's important to learn and acquiring all the skills that they need to learn, vertically articulated until they graduate. That's why Gary's getting gray hair. Because we have to look parents in the eye and say, we have an educational program that will prepare your kids for whatever is happening. So the 10 of you, it's very important that you are a team to get these things done. This isn't for the faint of heart. So because I'm a teacher at heart, I've decided it's time for a quiz. So if you'll indulge me, you don't have to write anything down, but just think about these. I have 5 items on my quiz. You look like you can handle this. Okay, well, I'm not sure about you, Gary. Just kidding. Okay, here's quiz statement number 1. Just think in your mind, true or false. We're going to make this really simple. True or false. We'll go through all 5 and then we'll see how you're doing. The role, R-O-L-E, role of public schools is spelled out in the US Constitution. True or false? You can write them down if you want to, or you just remember them in your head. Simple, true or false. The role of public schools is spelled out in the US Constitution. Number 2, the bulk of a school district's revenues come from local property taxes. True or false? The bulk of a school district's revenues come from local property taxes. True or false? 3. A local city, like your property taxes here. Good clarification. Thank you. 3, schools are responsible only for a student's academic/educational opportunities. School districts are responsible only for a student's academic/educational opportunities. 3, everything that a school district does, a public school district, must be available to the public. Everything a school district does has to be available to the public. True or false? Like this work session. Anybody need more think time? Ready to have at it? Okay. The U.S. Constitution spells out what public schools are responsible for. True or false? Anybody? False. Why, Gary? Mic up.
False, because it's a power left to the states.
Yes. You get a free drink coupon, or at least an A on this quiz question. Yes, the U.S. Constitution doesn't speak at all to the role of public schools. The founding fathers, no mothers, the founding fathers believed that education was a responsibility best left to the states. So if I read the Oregon state constitution, will it say anything about public schools? Yes, it says a lot about public schools, including, I think, some language like should be free and accessible to all. So nothing in the US Constitution. So if that's true, how is it that the federal government can tell us what to do on occasion? How did that come to be? Jessica.
Yeah, because the federal government still has concern for citizen welfare and for student rights and for, other things that are reserved to the federal government to ensure. So they're allowed to, for example, say that we will provide accommodations in a public space as a public body for students that need help and support. And they are allowed to give us money and place conditions on said money.
I like how you said they are allowed. That was really good language. So you might not have thought about this for a while, but the federal government, until about 1965, didn't have much of anything to do with schools. So for those of you who are history buffs, who followed John F. Kennedy after his assassination? Lyndon Johnson. And Lyndon Johnson declared war on something, not another country. Anybody know what that was?
Poverty.
Thank you. Poverty. You guys all are gifted. When Lyndon Johnson declared war on poverty, he started a program called Chapter 1, which is now called Title 1, believing that if kids who come from poverty attended schools that maybe got a little extra support, it would help give them advantages they didn't come to school having. And from there, it kind of went hither and yon. In 1973, so I was teaching already. In 1973, we got a court-ordered, it was a big one, a court order that said that society could no longer warehouse special ed kids because we put them away in brick buildings and didn't give them much of an education. And we had to, in the public schools, throw open our doors and take them all. And I'm here to tell you, we weren't ready. And little by little, we got better and better at accommodating all those kids with special needs, including gifted kids and learning disabled kids and wheelchair-bound kids and deaf kids and blind kids and speech impediment kids. And that was a heavy lift for several years. And from there, the federal government began to look at the welfare of students in our charge. So when I have legal and policy up there, I think Heather can tell me if she sees this differently. I think the public has not much of an idea or an understanding about how regulated we are. You know, there's a belief that we can just do whatever the heck we want to, that we're a big employer and, you know, we can just teach whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. I don't know, but these educators who've been around a while too can tell you it ain't necessarily so. We are highly regulated. Our bus drivers need special credentials. Our buses have to be, they have to meet specs. Unbelievable. Our curriculum has to align to the Oregon state standards. We have OSHA guidelines. We have Department of Labor guidelines. We have financial audit requirements. Somebody comes in and looks at our books. It's like, are you spending the money the way you're supposed to spend the money? So we are highly regulated. So that test question about the federal role in our business is a big one. Then I asked you if the bulk of the district's revenues come from local property taxes. Thank you for the clarifying question. What's the answer to that? False, because Jessica?
Because they come from the state, some from the feds, and even, especially in Oregon, yes, we get local property taxes, but they're equalized against what we get from the state. So you can raise a local dollar and then you lose a state dollar. So
Yep, it's a give and take there.
Yep, they are balanced against each other. So they're really all state dollars because any dollars you get locally,
You ship off.
that's right.
Yeah. And most of your dollars are state dollars here in Sherwood. And that's not true in all districts. Some districts in Oregon where you have a lot of federal land, they get a lot more federal money because it's federal money in lieu of property taxes.
And the
So-
state sweeps that too. So
Yes.
the PILT money doesn't get to stay in those districts. It's counted against
Yeah.
their state funds.
Put in a little coffer and
Oh,
then
yeah.
redistributed. So yeah, in fact, if you ever want to invite a migraine into school finance, because it's very complicated. Then I asked you if schools are responsible only for a student's academic or educational opportunity. Gary, I'm going to give that one to you.
I'm gonna go with false.
You're going to go with false because
There are so many aspects of children responsible for their health and safety, just to name one, in addition to their overall mental health and socio-emotional well-being. We have to look at the whole child if we want to educate them.
yes, and is that easy?
I'm gonna go with not really.
That would be a good I'm going to go with. Yeah, we are responsible for the student's whole being. That means not that we ever have enough of them, that we employ counselors and nurses and psychologists and support people to put around that classroom set of kids and individual kids to really support a kid's opportunity to be all that they can be. By the way, can a district hire whoever they want to hire? No. Steve, who can a district hire?
Well, if you're talking about teacher licensure, every teacher we hire has to be correctly licensed for every class they're going to teach and the level in which they're going to teach. And then the same is true for other positions. People have to have the proper credentials to be in those positions.
How about your paraprofessionals? Can you hire just anybody you want?
No, there's also a paraprofessional exam that they have to pass, or they have to have an associate's degree.
And how about your bus drivers? Can anyone just come even if they have a CDL?
Well, we entice them to come, even if they have a CDL, but then they have to go through training before they can transport kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are there any things called background checks?
We do background checks for all of our employees, all of our volunteers.
Yes. And that's because we are held to high standards, because when the public elects school board members, they say to you, we school board members are entrusting the people you hire to take care of our two greatest resources, our children and our tax dollars, hopefully in that order. So they want to know, what are we getting in return? And you then have a person like Gary who says, here's our academic program. And you have a person like Steve who says, we can guarantee that every person that your student will encounter in our schools is highly qualified and capable of providing services to your student that will help them be all that they can be. I am on a lot of airplanes, and I am struck by the fact that when I sit next to people and engage them in conversations, they're most concerned about whether or not their kids will like school. They just want their kids to have a good experience in school. Will they be safe? Will they have an opportunity to learn the most important stuff? That's this team's responsibility, and it's pretty heady. It's a pretty heady stuff. Does everything that a school district does get shared with the public? Gary, you're saying no. So you're going with false because?
Well, there are several things that can be made public. We're bound by FERPA and HIPAA, so the two federal privacy laws. We've got confidential personnel things going on, confidential board decisions, maybe around negotiations or real estate transactions or things of that nature. There are dozens and dozens of things that cannot be made public that are part of a regular function of a school district.
Thank you. Anybody want to add to that? That was a pretty darn good answer, if I must say so myself. You're welcome. Yes, I think that's another thing the public doesn't always understand, is they think everything is open access. Most things are, but not all things are. Students have a right to privacy. That IEP of an individual educational plan for every special ed kid is a legal contract. Not everybody has a right to know what that student's handicapping condition is. If students are on medication of one kind or another, not everybody has a right to know what that is. This board will have executive sessions, maybe about the, I don't know, purchase of land or negotiations or the non-renewal of an employee. That is not open to the public record. Your executive sessions are confidential. The FERPA and HIPAA laws apply big time to us. So the reason we did this little walk down the legal alley, I guess, is to say that it's important that this team of 10 be grounded in the extraordinary responsibilities you have to this community, to this community's parents, to this community's taxpayers, to this community's students. The good news is, based on your track record and your history and your outstanding results, congratulations, you are doing a marvelous job at upholding your end of the bargain. Any thoughts or questions about that? Your buildings have to be ADA compliant, another federal regulation. We can't just do what we want to do. In fact, Heather can tell you, everybody tells us what to do. The county commissioners, the city council, the members of Congress, the U.S. Department of Education, the Oregon Department of Education, the governor, everybody tells us what to do. We have the ultimate responsibility to pay attention to that. So as I was getting ready for today, I was struck again by the fact that the 10 of you in here all took an oath. That's how important what you do is. Board members take an oath of office when they're sworn in. Just think about the language, sworn in. These people, when they get their licenses, have to sign an oath. Do no harm to, will follow all of the state and federal laws and policies. That's what the board oath says. We will uphold the laws and policies of the school district in the state of Oregon. Wow. So if the 10 of you are charged with those responsibilities, how will you do that this year? How will the 10 of you come together in service to your 4,800 plus kids and your 500 employees and carry on? What does that mean? How will you do that? When the public views you, what will they see? How will they see you conducting business on their behalf? So while we have to do the business of the school district in public, we have responsibilities they rarely understand deeply. It's that heady. It's so important that you have to take an oath to get in here, to be at this table, to be in those chairs. You have to take an oath. Wow. My dad was a school board member for years. He had to take an oath. And he said that there were only 3 times that he had to swallow hard. Once when he got married, once when he took the oath as a World War II veteran, and once when he took that oath as a school board member. Big stuff, important stuff. So how we behave as a team matters. Your employees watch you, your students watch you, the public watches you, but it doesn't even matter who watches you. It's how will you work together to carry out all those responsibilities you are charged with. And for the most part, the board gets to hand off a lot of stuff. Good luck, Heather, because you can hand off some stuff, but it's actually your butt on the line here, answering to this group of people. And of course, these 5 people have a lot of power collectively, not individually, but collectively as a body of 5 elected board members. Sue, as the chairperson, holds a little bit of an extra bag of power because she can, to some degree, fashion in consultation with her colleagues and you guys, the agenda. She runs the meetings, so she has a little more cachet, you might say. So any questions on any of that before we move into what's a team? So if we understand the responsibilities, and we will take a break, if we understand our responsibilities and take them seriously, we know that a lot of people are depending on the 10 of us. So is anybody in here a sports fan? Seahawks or somebody else? Yeah. I can't say Broncos because that's too iffy. So here's my question, whether it's a sports team or the symphony or a committee, what characteristics make up a good team? What characteristics show up when you have an effective team? Tell me what's going through your mind. Duncan, give me one. What's a characteristic of a good team, sports or any other kind?
The first thing that comes to mind is discipline.
Discipline. That's a good one. Anybody else?
Trust.
Trust. Good one. Sue, you were going to mic up?
She took mine, but I'll go with another one. Camaraderie. Camaraderie.
Camaraderie. This feeling that we're all in this together. Make sure I'm in your head. Were you going to say something, Steve?
Yeah, I would say respect.
Respect. Jim,
Common goal.
say it again.
Common goal.
Common goals. Like we're in this for the same reason. And we've got trust and respect and camaraderie. Anybody else? Krista?
Accountability.
Accountability. Yeah, we're judged by on our actions, our results.
I was going to say healthy communication.
Say the first part again.
Healthy communication.
Healthy communication, not just any communication. Healthy communication. Excellent. Anything else? You were
Yeah.
going to say something earlier. Okay, you're passing.
I'll add work ethic.
Work ethic. Yeah, you show up to be a contributing member. Am I in your head right? Yeah, so if those are the characteristics of an effective team, then we want to say to ourselves on occasion, are we measuring up? How are we doing against the characteristics that we espouse? So I'll put those together and get those back to Sue. So every once in a while, when I work with boards, so I just finished a series, 3 sessions with board chairs and superintendents in the state of Connecticut. So all the board chairs and all the superintendents came together for 3 sessions. And one of the things we talked about is how are we going to hold ourselves accountable, which was your word, Krista, I think, right? Results, accountability. And they decided as a state that one of the things that they would do, you could give this some thought, Chairwoman Hecker, you could give this some thought. So they decided that they would end every one of their meetings with the question, how did we do at tonight's board meeting? Did we exemplify the characteristics of a team that we said were important? They then decided they would add a second question. What is it we did tonight that advanced the purpose of our organization, which is to serve kids? What can we point to in the agenda or in our actions or in our discussions that contributed to the well-being of our student body? I kind of like that. So maybe that gets at Krista's point about accountability, collective accountability, just a thought. So if those are the characteristics that you have identified as a team, I think I can remember them, and I will scope those out and send those to Sue. And you can determine whether or not you are coming together as a highly functional, highly effective team as you go forward into this new academic year with new members of your board. Jim, how long have you been here? Almost 5 years. So that's a pretty senior team. Chris, when did you come? I'm going to trip on this yet.
I've been here just over 3 years.
So this is a pretty veteran team. What I want you to know too is that it helps I think, to have ground rules, norms, if you will. So one of the things I can tell you about I haven't had the opportunity to work with Jim, just his dad, but these guys are people with whom I've worked, and they have norms that govern how they behave together, how they do business together. And maybe we want norms on how we're going to work together. And they don't have to be a dissertation full of pages of stuff. It can be as simple as listen respectfully, come prepared, do your homework, read your communication, anything like that. But then there are no surprises. So Heather, you have ground rules, right, for your administrative team meetings? What do those look like, just to help the board understand that you don't just come together and endlessly talk about things?
Right, sure. So our administrative team creates the group agreements or group norms, ground rules. Those are all ways of talking about the same thing. At the beginning of every school year, we revisit those group agreements and make adjustments as the team sees fit and necessary. It includes things like being respectful of others' time. We start on time, end on time, come prepared, monitor our air time. But it goes deeper than that as well. It's about staying present in the conversation. It's about how we treat one another in conversations, especially when we have different perspectives. And it's also about debating in search of the best answers and then unifying behind the decisions that we make.
Great, thank you. Gary, when you work with principals and you're out in the buildings, do principals have like leadership teams and do the leadership teams at the building, do they function with norms or agreements?
Most or all of them do, yes. And same with our district level committees. We will often, generally, if it's a longstanding committee, we'll develop operating norms and agreements about how we're going to work together.
Great, I really appreciate that. So at the start of this afternoon, Heather said something about, who we are and what we bring forward. We're all products of our experiences, some good, some not so good, but we don't check them at the door. We are all products of our experiences, and we all forward some beliefs about things, some values, and style. I don't know about you, but I've served on some committees where there are people who are very quiet, and you have to kind of invite their voices into the room because they're just processing quietly. And then there are some people who just talk all the time because they're verbal processors. They have to talk out loud, it seems, to sort out their thoughts. So after we take a break, we're going to talk about what we individually bring to this team in terms of what we value and what our style preference is, because if we can understand one another better, then we can work well together going forward. So by my watch, I have about 10 of 3. Would 15 minutes be adequate to check your messages, find the restroom? Alrighty, see you back here in 15. So I mentioned earlier that I find myself in airplanes often. And so I've heard this statement, which I will use with you. We know you have choices for thanks for coming back. So thanks for coming back after our little stretch break. Thank you very much. First things first, did I miss anybody's responses to characteristics of a high functioning team? Did I get everybody's responses, or am I missing communication? Thank you. Healthy. Thank you for that add-on. Any others?
I didn't add one, but if I can, I was thinking about it that to me, I think a team is honest and uses uses honest and verifiable information. So like we debate with facts, we're honest with each other.
Okay. Transparency, did I hear? Thank you. So when we think about coming together to be a part of a team, what I said as we took a break is we bring with us into the team's environment our experiences, who we are. And who we are is driven in large part by what we value, what we believe, and our style, how we approach work or decisions or whatever you want to call it. So there's one other thing we bring with us, and that is if you stay current with the business research and literature, it can inform our work quite a bit. And I'm a voracious reader. Gary, you're an English major, are you not?
Economics.
Economics. Why did I think you were English? Because I wanted you to be. I don't know.
You're thinking of Steve.
Steve's an English person. Yeah, so am I. So I'm a voracious reader, and in the current vernacular in the business world, one of the people who has emerged as a guru of sorts is a guy named Simon Sinek. Has anybody in here heard of Simon Sinek? His best-selling book is called It Starts With Why. Oh, yeah. 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 And his TED Talk is like watched by 4 million people, and a lot of people use it in their professional development or training, corporate trainings. But I want you just to turn inward for a moment and answer this question for me. Why are you here? What's your why to serve Sherwood School District? What's your why? I get asked all the time, like, why aren't you retired? So I've given a lot of thought to why am I not retired? And I think why I'm not retired is I am passionate about this work. I am passionate about people who serve the public's interests, particularly as it relates to their children and public schools. Thomas Jefferson had this great idea decades ago about the public schools serving the public good. He called it the common school. So we have a common experience with each other to contribute to a better society. That's my why. I mean, I think I've learned a lot. I think I have something to offer. I love hanging with educators. And I just said to Duncan, I just love being with kids. They're so freaking funny. They're just really amazing, each in his or her own way. So what's your why? And I'm not going to go around the room and ask everybody to share their why, but I'll take some volunteers if you want to share your why. Why do this? This is hard. You got targets on your back. You got 500 employees for whom you're responsible. You have almost 5,000 kids for whom you're responsible. Wow, your microphone light went on fast. Please.
Because education has the power to change lives. It does every day. And we've got 4,800 kids plus kids whose formative years are with us.
They are.
And that is a tremendous responsibility
And privilege.
and an incredible privilege.
It
And
really is.
I really think that's my why, because I believe in the power of public education to improve community, to improve the commons, as Jefferson wrote about, but to keep expanding what that means. So the commons when Jefferson wrote it is very different than the commons today, and thank God for that. But we have a lot of work to do to make public education as accessible to kids with lots of different things and coming from backgrounds that I have not walked through. But our job is to make this an amazing place, a great place for all kids. I believe in that mission statement, and that's why I keep coming back here and why I'm really privileged that the voters have given me this opportunity to serve, because I believe that we can change lives and we can help each kid find what it is that they need to be successful. And whatever that is, and it's going to be different for each kid, I believe in the power of this organization's change lives, and that's exciting.
That's exciting. That is heavy. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody on this side of the team, why do you step up in service to the board and the community and those you serve? Why do this? Heather, thank you.
For me, my why has changed slightly over the years. I started as a high school teacher, and my why was directly about the students in my classroom and in the school that I served in, and that's been the center of every iteration of my why over the years, and as my positions have changed. And for me now, with students squarely at the center, my why is also about, in this position, I have the ability to create a larger impact and influence in supporting staff in the most important work that happens in our district. And that's what happens in classrooms every day. So it's always been with students at the center of my why. And now it's also about supporting staff and helping to remove barriers so that they can do the amazing work that they do.
Thank you. Any other board members? What's your why? Abby, thank you.
I've always, every job I've ever had, every volunteer position I've ever served on has been for kids, with kids, about kids, working with kids. And I just love everything about working with kids, except for sometimes my own kids drive me crazy. But I really love other people's
Let the
kids.
record show.
Yeah, I really love other people's kids. And I just wanted a different way to serve kids in our community. And
Here you
education
are.
has always been incredibly important to me. So
That's great. Have you always known that? Did you know that even as a kid yourself?
since I was like 10 years old, my mom would always say you were always watching other people's kids. You were always
Wow.
volunteering to run camps, or everything I've ever done in school was geared towards kids. And little kids have always just been drawn to working with me too. So
It was meant to
It's just
be.
natural fit.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Wow. Anybody else? Anybody on the staff side? What's your why? Why do this? Gary, thank you.
You know, the reason I got into education hasn't really changed. I just wanted to do something with my life that made a difference.
Yeah,
And that hasn't changed. And what that is that we're doing to make a difference changes from time to time, but it's really, I wanted some meaning in my work, and that's what it was for me. And I liked, the reason I chose education is I didn't know this about myself till I was a young adult, but I really liked working with kids. And I really didn't babysit. I had a younger brother, but no cousins. I wasn't around a lot of kids as a kid. I was around kids my own age. But when I became older, I found I really liked working with kids. And so those two together really, that's what did it for me. And I
Thank
still
you.
like kids.
and you still like kids, even your own. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else on either the board team or the administrative team? Thanks, Steve.
You bet. I would say my junior year in college, this became my calling.
Really?
I think I recognized that we are all called in one way or another to do our part in making people's lives better, and to show them that there are opportunities out there if they're willing to work hard and to look for those. And so, as Heather said, for me, it was initially about my students. I taught high school, and it was really about those kids. And then as I moved into administration later in my career, I recognized that, as Heather said, it is my job now to do everything I can to provide the best opportunities for our staff to serve kids in a way that's going to make a difference for them. And so now it's about hiring well. It's about getting the right people, making sure people are in the right seats on the bus, so to speak, and doing what we can to prepare kids.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I think my mic's on, yeah. Anybody else? Board members? Staff members? I'm a teacher, so I do wait time well.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
So for me, I was just raised with my grandma saying a dollar spent on education is never wasted. And that's actually on my wall at the house. Even though the kids kind of make fun of me for that, but that's my belief. And that's how I was raised. And I understand the power of education and how it can change lives and open doors. But the reason I think I really ended up here was when my oldest was in kindergarten. And I realized that I was going to have to do something, that I couldn't sit by idly as budgets were cut and things were really difficult. And it was time to roll up my sleeves. And with the goal that when they graduated, I could look them in the face and say, I did what I could.
Wow.
And that's just been the driving force, is to do whatever I can for all kids, not just my own. But if we can sustain a program that made a difference and opened a door for a child, it's just that's what I want to do. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and congratulations to all of you for stepping up. I think the last time I was here, Steve and I had a quick conversation about the plethora of offerings you provide your students. It is not like that everywhere. I just came from the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, and that's like a third world country. And if those kids could see your facilities and your offerings, their eyes would pop. And these are teachers who wouldn't teach anywhere else because they choose to make a difference there, and they are needed there. So I guess, a grateful heart. Be grateful for the community support. Be grateful for what opportunities you are providing your students. And one thing that triggered in my mind, Steve, as you were talking, and Gary too. So, one of the things I've had the privilege of being able to do in my career is really get my hands around research. What do effective school districts look like, and what do they do to achieve success? What do schools do that are successful? How can we replicate that? What happens in the classroom that produces the results? What are those things, and how do we replicate those? One of the things that I've been privileged to study is what causes people to self-select education or to select volunteer work to step up and run for the board or serve on a school committee. And for the research on educators on our side of this team equation, it's powerful. It's so powerful. It comes out of the University of Chicago. And if you want to know more, Heather's got my email. But in short, it's been published. You can buy it on Amazon. In short, what the researchers found, Benjamin Bloom's protege, for those of you who know your education research, the research is really clear that people self-select public education in order to make a difference. Without ego, teachers, most of us start as teachers, believe they can actually make the world a better place by serving students, by helping them be all that they can be or more than they would be if we weren't in their lives. That is pretty powerful. But what's really amazing is that educators, are you ready for this? It's a little dented at the moment, but educators are the happiest and healthiest of all professions. They're also the most honest, decent, altruistic, idealistic of all the professions, and that includes the clergy. Whoa, that's pretty amazing. And they live longer. So you have an entity like PERS, right? Your Public Employees Retirement System, and they have actuaries who have to think about return on investment in order to make sure there's money available for Gary when he retires. Well, what actuaries of public retirement systems for educators find is that they have to recalculate things because of the life expectancy of educators. So I shared that with principals not long ago, and one principal said from the back of the room, well, heck yeah, we don't have time to die. It's like, yeah, that could be. So that's your why, and it behooves us to remember, what is it that motivates us to come here? Some of us have known for a very long time, kindergartner, your own kids, and going back to when you were 10, and some of us come at it a little bit later, junior in college or whatever it might be, but here we all are. And our why is important because that drives who we are and what we bring into this room and onto this team. Another thing that drives who we are is what we value. So I put a page turned face down on your chair close to you. And this is the work of Kouzes and Posner, who are leadership gurus. And what I'd like you to do is to look at that list of values. And there are a lot of them. They're in alphabetical order going horizontally. And what I'd like for you to do is circle, if you would, 20 that speak to you. So of all of those values, do 20 kind of pop out at you as like, oh, I like this one. Oh, this matters to me. Oh, I think I should circle this one. And if you want 22 or 17, 20 is just an arbitrary number. Pardon me? No, it's yours. Absolutely. As I mentioned, if you don't get to 20 and you think, well, I don't know, I'm at 16. Don't force it, just whichever values really speak to you. 15, 18, 20, 22. And you have them circled. Take another look through them and make sure you're not overlooking anything that speaks to you. Well, don't then. Although, but it's going to get tougher. Another minute. Who needs more time? We're good? So now what I'd like you to do, since you've circled 18 or 20 or 22, would you underline the 10 that matter most to you? Underline 10 that matter most. Forced choice. Of those 20 or 22, some are probably more important to you than others. Which 10 might those be? You're good, Duncan? Okay, it looks like most of us have gotten down to 10 and now it gets a little bit harder. Would you put an asterisk by your top 5? So these are the things that at your heart and soul matter to you. What 5 values do you hold so dear that they ascend to the highest priority of all the rest? An asterisk by 5. You good, Christine? No, it doesn't seem very hard for you. You good, Sue? Krista's done. Abby? How we doing, Jessica? I know, I can tell. It's the furrow in your brow. Okay, now, how we doing, Gary? No, we're not just picking something. Yeah. You are on the same team. Yeah. Yeah. Now I'd like to ask you to share, to the degree that you're comfortable sharing, what values emerge as individuals who are on this team? Who might like to share their 5? There aren't any wrong answers here. We're just seeking to understand. Thank you. Krista, go for it.
In alphabetical order.
Okay.
Country, family, helping others, integrity, and truth.
Great. And I missed your first one?
Country.
Country. Great. All right. Thank you, Krista, for your 5. Anybody else? Steve, please.
I can go in alphabetical order. Family, health, spirituality and religion, more the same for me. So 1, relationships and truth.
Relationships and truth. Your second one?
Health.
Health. Yeah, that'd be a big one. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Steve. Sue, please.
I can go, family, health, honesty, integrity, and productivity.
And which one?
Productivity.
Productivity. Good one. Thank you, Sue. Anybody else?
I can check.
Abby, please. I'm coming your way, Duncan.
Okay. Family, relationships, helping society. And then I kind of hate these 2 about me, but it's honest, is fun and efficiency.
Ooh, well, they're kind of interesting.
I know there's better ones than fun, but if I'm being truthful. And then efficiency is kind of double-edged sword.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honesty is good. You got it right in there. Fun and efficiency. Thank you. Duncan.
Family, health, spirituality, helping others, and friendship.
And friendship. Nice set there, Duncan. Thank you. Jim.
Family, health, humor, love, and work-life balance.
And work-life balance. What a concept. Thank you. Yes, dear.
Integrity, love, relationships, self-awareness, and spirituality.
Self-awareness and spirituality. Self-awareness we hadn't had before. Anybody else? Jessica, you're ready to go.
Well, like 5.
That was such a good sigh.
Okay. These are in
No
row
order.
because
Okay.
I can't, yeah.
Yeah.
Family, meaningful work, integrity, excellence, and helping society.
Excellence in helping society. Thank you. Heather.
Okay, I'm going to go reverse alphabetical order just to throw things off. Loyalty, relationships, integrity, family, and then the one that's kind of like equivalent to the ones that you guys have shared, achievement.
Achievement, or like productivity, or yeah. Gary.
So in whatever order they come in, it would be family, health, community, friendship, and helping others.
And helping others. Thank you. Great list. Did I miss anybody? I think did you not hear some common themes across this team? I surely did, which is terrific when it comes to forming a new team with new people. Good for you guys, but now you know the values that you bring forward with you onto this team. So if you think about a 3-legged stool, on top of that stool sits your why, your purpose, why you choose to step up and do this, whether on the board side or the management side. So that top of that stool becomes really important. It's what brings you here. The 3-legged stool, one leg is represented by your values. Now you know your values because you were forced to identify. It's a pretty nice list, isn't it? But you had to narrow it down to 5, and you did it. And you did it rather efficiently. You really did. And you identified your 5 values. So the second leg in that 3-legged stool that you bring with you onto this team or anywhere else is your beliefs. What is it that you believe about public schools? What is it that you believe about kids? What is it you believe about opportunity? What is it that you believe about the characteristics of a team? What is it that you believe about our collective purpose why we exist. Why should kids come to school in 2021 when they can go online and learn whatever they want to learn? What's in it for them? Why should they show up? What's our purpose? So what you believe and what you value drive your behaviors, how you show up, how you interact with people. So I'm a big fan of public radio. And when I'm in a rental car in Connecticut or Colorado or Oregon or California, I typically listen to public radio. And there used to be a segment on All Things Considered called This I Believe. So if you're a public radio fan, you've probably heard that segment. So it got me thinking, am I clear about what I believe? And is what I believe aligned to my why? And so I've thought about that. I actually used this, Heather, I think, with your staff at a convocation. My beliefs haven't really changed much. I'll be bold and share a little bit of them with you. I believe, Jessica, this will resonate with what you said, or will resonate with you based on what you said. I believe that a quality education remains the best path for people to achieve the American dream. I believe that teachers and educators, along with healthcare workers and first responders, are the nation's unsung heroes. I believe all children are gifted in some way, and our job is to help them identify their gifts and help them learn with and through their gifts. I believe in the power of gratitude, grace, and forgiveness. I believe that each day is a gift and it is best used in service to others. I believe in the magic of public schools where all students are welcome. And I won't go on from there, but you get the degree to which when you clarify your beliefs, that's your authentic self. So already in those 5 or 6 statements, you have a pretty good idea of who I am, what I stand for, what I'm about, what I bring forward into this team. So if you were invited to script your beliefs, could you? Not going to ask you to do it today because it's personal and it takes thought and reflection. So I'm going to invite you in your private time, in your personal time, if you're courageous enough, scribe your beliefs. You will find, I believe, that they will be harmonious with your values. Those of you that mention things like spirituality, love, family, those will show up in your belief statements, I have to think. So if you're bold and so inspired to do so, take 10 minutes, 15 minutes between now and the end of the weekend and jot down at my soul level, these are my beliefs. The third leg of that 3-legged stool is a style preference. We, each of us, have a preferred style. Some of you might have been in arenas where you've done some personality profiles, Myers-Briggs, whatever it might be. I like this one for a variety of reasons. It's called the 4 Directions. It is based on the Native American culture, in whose culture the 4 directions are powerful, as are Mother Earth and the sky. The 4 directions, of course, are north, south, east, and west. According to this style, each of us has a dominant direction by virtue of our preference. So here is what they look like and sound like. And this again will be a forced choice. And by the way, if you're not sure which direction you are after I give you the background, just ask your significant other. They will tell you exactly which direction you are. Okay, so you might be inclined to be a north if you like to take charge, if you like to jump in the deep end and get after it. It's kind of like Larry, the cable guy, just get her done. Or like Nike, go for it. You're action oriented. Okay, that's a north. Boom, boom, action oriented, get her done, jump in, let's do something. You could be a west if before you're inclined to take action, you're one of the people who says, wait a minute, how much is this going to cost? What's the timeline? That's a west. So think details. Before they do anything, they want to know everything. Okay, that's a west. By the way, we need wests. Like, who's going to do it? What's it going to look like? What kind of time is it going to take? What's the hit to the budget? Okay, west. You're getting a look from the boss.
I'm known as a West on this one.
Yeah, genuflect in her direction. Okay, you could be an east. And easts are the people who, before action is taken, they ask questions like, wait a minute, isn't there a better option than the one we have on the table? They're possibility thinkers. Before we do anything, have we explored all the possibilities on how to proceed? They're not, Okay, you're just, why are you squirming? Okay, you're getting the look anyway. All right, so easts are big picture thinkers, possibility thinkers, like, wait, before we act, there might be a better way to do this. Those are your easts. And then there are souths. And the souths are the people who say, wait a minute, I don't think we've heard from Gary yet. They're peace and harmony people, consensus builders. Before we do anything, we should probably hear from everybody. And I'm not sure, Sue, we've heard from you, or maybe we didn't really understand that, what you were saying. It's like peace and harmony. It's like, let's circle up here and see if we can get to consensus. Those are your souths. Here's the deal. We need them all. So for this half of the table, I will say that most administrators in schools are norths and most teachers are souths. Oh boy. So, and if we're not careful, we can run over people when we're norths. By the way, two norths do not a perfect marriage make, right? Two action-oriented, get after it people. So would you do me a favor and jot down what you believe your dominant direction is? If there's any doubt in your mind, as I mentioned, just ask your significant other. They will typically tell you without blinking what direction you are and get pretty darn accurate. So I'm curious, how many norths do we have at the table? Oh boy. A lot of norths do not a consensus building team make either, because each of you in here wants to get after it and wants to get after it your way.
I have some Eastern tendencies.
You have East
I'm
tendencies?
North with some Eastern.
Yes.
sympathies. Yeah.
Yes. And most of us have a backup. Most of us also, because we interact with a lot of other people in our daily lives, have learned to accommodate. It's like, okay, I'm a North, but I can't be too take charge just yet. You know, we're self-monitoring kind of. But you have a lot of Norths in this room. That could be a yellow flag. That's the kindest way I can say that. That's a lot of Norths. So do I have any Wests? Duncan, good for you. So the two of you are going to have to stick together, and every once in a while, you're going to have to slow this group down and say, wait a minute. How much is this going to cost? Who's going to do this? Whose bright idea was this? Because without you two, details can sometimes be overlooked. And we can find ourselves going down a path and then having to back up. Do I have any Easts? Yay, Gary. So you're going to have to, Krista, are you an East too? You're a Northwest and you're a Northeast. And Gary, you're East as your dominant direction. Yeah. So you're going to have to hold your own on this team by putting some other possibilities and options on the table. And do I have any Souths in the room? Yeah, who gives a rip about peace and harmony? So every once in a, yeah, it's your second. Yeah, I can see that, Heather. So every once in a while, it's not a bad idea to say, you know, before we make this decision, what would a South say if there were a South in the room? The best team has a balance of directions. A bunch of Norths on a team invites some caution flags. So you just want to be careful and say, okay, do we have enough information? Have we thought about all the details? Gary, are there possibilities here we're overlooking? And have we heard from everybody? So I guess Heather, maybe as a superintendent, Sue as a board chair, every once in a while you'll have to activate your South, no matter if it's your fourth direction. It's like, I'm not sure we've heard from Duncan. That's the challenge of leadership. So in this packet, by the way, I've worked with these companies, so I'm using these they're copyrighted. I'm using them with permission, just to put that out there. And so can you. So if you want to use these with your kids or people you work with or your principals or anything, you surely can. So you have their permission to use these. So you can see there on that first page, the tendencies that each direction brings forward to the team assembled. There's a little further explanation on the second page with the symbolic compass there. And then pages 3 and 4 I put in there just because I thought you might enjoy them, how other people see your direction. So it's really interesting, and the educators in the room will appreciate this. When I do this with a group of teachers, South is almost always the biggest group. And it's really classic because they will almost always stand in a circle. It's just classic. Yeah, it's like, okay, kumbaya, let's get together here, you know. And then it says, I will ask teachers, what strengths do the people that have your dominant direction bring to a team? Well, without Norths, we just talk everything to death, right? But if we just had Norths, we might forget the details or other options that should be looked at. But without Souths, we might have a situation that Dick Elmore at Harvard School of Ed used to talk about if you call yourself a leader and you turn around, there's nobody behind you, you might want to call yourself something else, which I thought that's really good. So what tendencies about your direction is helpful to the group? Which tendencies about your direction drive other people nuts? And how can we compensate for that? So now you have your three-legged stool pretty well assembled, each of you individually, and you bring that together to build your team three-legged stool. You have your why, you have your values pretty clearly identified today. You have your beliefs. That is your homework assignment, should you choose to accept it. And you have your strengths as it relates to the 4 directions. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Helpful? Yeah, it's kind of insightful, I think, in a way. Heather.
So Peg, I just wanted to share just a couple thoughts about this activity. So you introduced this to our administrative team several years ago at our
Yes, that
Administrative
summer
Leadership
retreat. Yeah.
Institute. And it was, it was designed at the time to kind of get people moving around while also learning more about ourselves and each other. But what we didn't anticipate after that day many years ago is that this activity would become central to so much that we do as a leadership team in our schools with our staff. So when we go through interview processes for various positions, ideally on an administrative position, for example, at a school, it would be great to be able to have each of the areas of the compass represented. We know that that's not always going to be the case, but we engage in these conversations in finalist interviews. I have been in schools in the past and teachers have come up and asked me where I am on the compass, and they've shared where they are on the compass. And it really creates a really great conversation. And Peg, that activity, so many years ago, that certainly had its place in the agenda, has really stuck, and it has impacted in so many ways throughout the district. And even just as recently as last week or the week before, it's all kind of a blur right now, but when we had our Leadership Institute with all of our administrators over the course of 3 days, this was an activity that was revisited. 2 of our administrators took their take on how to lead it, and that way all of our new administrators could engage in the conversation too. So that's just a long-winded way of saying thank you for bringing this activity, which really does, it's fun, it's funny. We all have inside jokes on our team about where we are on the compass and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. And, but truly it's super meaningful and really appreciated.
Yeah, and so many board members have mentioned their own kids at one point or another throughout this afternoon. So when I work with teachers, I tell them about the applicability of this with their classrooms of kids. Kids who are north are the kids who start the activity before the teacher has finished the directions. They're like, get after it, The kids who are the Wests, as an English teacher, they were the kids who would say, how many paragraphs does it have to be? Is this for a grade? When is this due? Is this ABC or pass fail? They have to know everything before they launch. The kids who are Easts are the kids who say, do I have to show my work just like this? Can I do it this way? Is this the only novel we can read? Can I choose my own? They're looking for different pathways forward. And then the Souths are like, hey, teacher, I don't think Jessica got that. So these, Exactly. And so you got a classroom of kids that exhibit these same directions. And unlike the Myers-Briggs, where it's like ESJT or whatever, you can remember north, south, east, west. So it's a handy little activity that really is, who said, Jessica, you said something earlier about verifiable. This is a research-based activity that is proven to be very accurate in terms of people's styles. So I hope that you had some fun doing it. Thoughts, questions, comments beyond Heather's? Anybody? Could you see using this in your own life, in your own family circumstances? Yeah. In your team at work, for sure. Yep. And even the youngest of kids, like Duncan was talking about his 3 kids, each of them have a dominant direction, and he'll go home tonight and he'll figure it out in about 3 minutes who exhibits which direction. Anybody else? So we have, in very short order, done about a semester's course of work on building an effective team. Who's in the room? What's your why? What responsibilities are handed to us by the state and federal government, by the taxpayers and the community in which we serve? As we think about the power of being responsible for almost 5,000 students and 500 kids. Wow. And as Gary mentioned earlier, it's not just about the curriculum we provide. It's about what do we feed them. We have to meet nutritional guidelines. It's about how do we transport them. We have to meet the proper specifications for bus drivers and buses and vans and insurance. We are responsible for their health and safety. We are responsible for making sure that they acquire the necessary credits adopted by the board in order to graduate. We need to make sure we have an accredited high school. So if kids want to go to the U of O, they can be admitted without qualification or hesitation, or UCLA or Stanford or Harvard or Princeton or wherever else. The 10 people in this room have an awesome set of responsibilities. And don't forget that with those responsibilities, it's a privilege. It's a privilege for parents to entrust their students to us. Don't ever forget that. Parents or guardians. And that we're here to serve all kids. Realize their gifts. Help them become more than they might have become had they not gone to school here. Wow. Now, I want you to do a couple of favors for me. I want you to think first privately what the operational management side of the equation needs from the board. And I want the board members collectively to think about what you need from these people. In order to be a more effective team, to have efficient, with accountability, board meetings, to honor the board's role, fiduciary oversight, hire the superintendent who can lead us forward, establish strategic direction for the school district. That's your job, not theirs. How do you think about that, and what do you need from these people to be able to say, nailing it? And in order for you guys to function well and to lead a successful school district organization, what is it that you need from the collective board in order to say, nailed it? Now, I don't know if you can circle up a little bit, or if you guys can move your chairs in and have a conversation, and if you guys can socially distance, turn your chairs and have a conversation with each other, and then have somebody speak for the group after you have your conversation, what do you need from them? What do you guys need from the board? Would you just circle up? And I'm going to give you about 15 minutes because this is critical to how we move forward together. What do we need from management? What do we need from governance? Circle up. Now I know the Norths are going to take over in both teams, so there you go. Good idea, Duncan. 15 minutes starts now. 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Time's up. Don't move just yet. Thank you so much for doing that, for taking the time to share and to think through deeply what management needs from governance, what governance needs from management before you leave the island or get voted off the island. Would you just take a minute and talk as the governance team, talk as the management team? What is it going forward? I heard Jessica say these are unprecedented times or something like that, trying to kind of catch a little bit of conversation here and there. These are challenging times, whether you're on the governance side of leadership or the management side of leadership. Take just a minute and talk within your team. What is it you need from each other to support each other, to hang together in these unprecedented times? What do we need from each other to have the best possible year going forward? Because we've launched, and now on September 8th, the kids come. What do you all need from each other? What do you need from each other? You've got a leader in the board chair. You've got a leader in your superintendent. You guys kick it off. What do you need from your team members? And then give them a chance to say what they need from you. Go. 5 minutes and I'll do a check back then. Okay, here we go, gang. So one of my takeaways, and I have several, and I tried not to eavesdrop the entire time, is you guys need more time together sometimes. So the conversation that you just had about what you need from each other within the teams, that's for your teams to know. But we're going to go back to the former conversation and hear from each other. So I'm going to start in deference to the board. I'm going to start with the board, and Abby has scribed and has agreed to report out. And Abby, I might have you mic up for this. Thank you.
I didn't really agree. It was process of elimination really, but
It
we-
worked.
yeah, we started a little bit more vague and then things got a little bit more specific. I think especially for the three of us that are new, we need more understanding just about systems and processes and how we got to be to where we are with certain agreements. We realize that we can't understand what's happened for the last 12 or 15 years that Sue or Jessica have been on the board. But there are going to be so many times, I think, where we are going to read something or hear something and think, I don't know what you guys are talking about, or I don't have the background on why that is the way it is. So we know that we really need that from you guys. And specifically when we were talking about the wheel of all the 8 different functions, yeah, I mean, we almost need to understand each of those functions and what's in them and what they look like. And am I communicating all that clearly? That was kind of the most vague. More specifically, there was information about background on like the SRO decision, IGA, school finance, how we came to have programs like AVID, information on SEA and OSCA negotiations. Those were all kind of more specific under that. We talked about having better understanding or needing better understanding of teacher contract information. Duncan mentioned that he needed maybe for you guys to have an open-mindedness or willingness to act on new information, feeling that the community has elected different people to be in this position because they want to see a change in some way. And so hoping that you guys will be open-minded to those changes. Let's see. Oh, this was a big thing for us. I don't know if it's always been this way, but going forward, we would really love some time to understand things that are going to be important that we need to vote on or take action on. So a little. Yeah, we just need to make sure we have a decent amount of time to understand the issue that we're going to be taking action on, so that if we have questions or we need background information, we understand what all the different options are and what the consequences might be if we choose an option different than what you are suggesting. Just some time to think on those things so that you're not asking for a quick decision from us. Let's see. One other expectation we came up with is that when you guys do bring us new ideas that you would like us to move forward with, that you have already done the work to make sure that it's a program that's sustainable, that you know that our school district can maintain it for a decent period of time, that we're not having to research that on our own because it's not really in our wheelhouse to understand that. Somebody also said no surprises. I know some things change very quickly, but if possible, we don't want to come in here and be surprised by the information that we're about to hear. And I think the last thing that was important to us that I wrote down was that we want to be able to have time, if possible, when possible, to respond to communication. We get notified of communication that's going to go out. And it would be nice to have a little bit more time to read it and respond to it if we feel like we need to respond before it goes out within like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It'd be nice if we had a couple hours maybe. We do realize that some of that information is coming out specifically from the district and maybe doesn't apply to us. So we don't expect to have our hand in every little communication that goes out, but specifically anything that references the board is really useful. I know I was saying, and I don't ever mean to correct you or be rude, Christine, but when we see an email, as a parent, I used to think like, oh, what about this? Or what about that? Or I'm missing this piece of information. And it wasn't until I got on the board that I realized that you had so many jobs and that you have so much knowledge about how everything works that sometimes I think things are missed because it's not a question for you because you know all that information. And so when we take 2 seconds and read over it, something quickly pops up in our mind that we don't understand. And if we don't understand it, most parents probably don't understand it. And so just having a second to say, what about this? We would totally appreciate. Not that it's always owed to us, but it would be wonderful if we had that. Am I missing anything? I didn't write it down if I am. So,
Abby, thank you so much. So I want to do exactly what Abby just invited board members. Do you want to add anything, clarify anything, correct anything? Did Abby do a quality job reporting out for all of you? Well, give her a hand. She did a great job. You just throw money. That's the line that you're supposed to say. And reporting,
Can I have
That's-
one thing?
yes, please, Sue, thank you.
You know, as we look at that list, it just really occurs to me that what resonated, we just really need some time to kind of fill in some of the background. And I think a lot of the other things, you know, sort of relate to that, and would be a lot more clear, especially for new board members, and a great refresh for all of us. So I think if we can fill in some of the gaps, I think it would be really incredibly beneficial. And, you know,
I really
for a lot of
appreciate that. Yes, and that, you know, and Sue, you can help management do that because you have 3 brand new people, and that's like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar, highly regulated, complex organization, and we on the management side just can't expect you to come in and have all the background information on every single item in order to make an intelligent vote, let alone conversation. Thank you very much.
If
So-
I can also just jump in
Please.
for a little bit of clarity. I think some of these things are requests given from new board members, and some of the conversation was about things that we just generally expect that I think you, from my perspective, are currently happening and are mostly a continuation. So the no surprises, for example, that has been kind of a standing thing that we've had for a long time. It's not on
Right.
the list because we're being surprised. It's because that's something that we want to continue. The vetting of new ideas and new positions for sustainability, that has been a practice around here for a very long time. It's why we have a stable budget. And that's one of the things that we want to continue to expect from the team. So some of these things, I don't want to leave the impression or have you all wondering, well, what is it exactly that we aren't doing that we thought we were doing? Some of these are a reiteration of things that our current expectations, agreements that we've had for years.
Thank you, Jessica. And before we hear from the management about what they need from governance, I want to invite the management team members to whatever degree you're comfortable and desirous. Do you have a response to what you just heard? And I mean, initially, this is all going to come back to you and we're going to have a chance to think about it, talk about it, and move it forward. Steve, you're looking like you might want to say something.
No, I was just going to say thank you. I think it's always it's always very helpful to hear other people's needs, so that if we don't know what those needs are, we don't know how to address those. And so that for me personally was very helpful, and it actually correlates really well with what we have believed as well. Having 3 new board members on a board of 5, we have had been having conversations about, you know, what kinds of information will you guys need moving forward to be able to feel confident in this role and partner with us in making wise decisions.
Thank you. Heather, your light's on?
Oh, I just wanted, Steve, I appreciate that. And I just want to add on to that and kind of put an exclamation point. It's super helpful to hear this from the board. So much appreciated. And one of the things that I'm excited about is that the way we've created the meeting structure for September, like through December, with the 2 meetings a month. One of them is solely for a work session. That was because in conversations months ago, thinking about how to provide context on some of the big topics. So I think hopefully you'll really feel that coming up once we get past the start of school and starting in September, really focusing in a work session on budget 101, for example,
Mhm.
IGA with the city, for example, and kind of moving on from there. So I'm really excited to hear that. And I think we do have something that will help with the time piece and the context and the background, I hope.
Thank you. And any other members of management want to dial in response to the board? Board members, I just want to applaud you and your conversation and your candor with what it is you need from management in order to do your jobs efficiently and effectively. And it is, serving on a board like a school board, governing a complex institution like a school district your size is it's important, and it's a big lift, and there are no dumb questions. There just aren't, because it is so complex and it's so steeped in regulation and history and tradition. So I applaud you for the conversation that you have had, and I applaud the management team for receiving it in the manner in which you presented it and wanted it presented. So thank you. And did I see Mr. Minuteman over there, Mr. Rose? The scribe.
The scribe.
Thank you, Jim.
That's because nobody else can read my chicken scratch. Some of these will sound similar to the ones you shared with us, and some are kind of complementary. And we kind of started maybe with some broader ones and worked down to more narrow requests. But starting with just the assumption of good intentions and the assumption that we are on the same team. And then having a willingness to learn from staff who frankly have dedicated their lives to this business and to the students of this district or other districts if we happen to come from other districts. Peg, do you need me to go slow? All right. Yeah, willing to listen to staff who've dedicated their lives to this business. Sure. And to go along with that is just the openness to hearing about what we do and then why. Because sometimes maybe those decisions of why we do something don't make sense unless you've listened and heard the what. What's causing us? What are the parameters we're working under? What are the requirements from the Department of Ed or the federal education department? Those kinds of things. It's kind of to your ask, give us some time to learn. This is also give us the opportunity to tell you why decisions are made the way they are at times. And then this is kind of a big one, and it's a kind of multifaceted, but ask questions in a really thoughtful way and ask questions in advance. This kind of goes to the no surprises, because some of those questions that you're going to ask and that may seem like a small or trivial question may actually require a fair amount of research, or it may require somebody outside of this room or outside of this group to be able to get back to you with that information. And so having those in advance, maybe ever before we get to a board meeting, we can help provide that information ahead of time, or we can provide better information when you need it to make those decisions. And again, it helps you to have time ahead as well. And then also just on the questions, if you could be thoughtful of the asks or questions because of the impact and the recognition that some of those questions will take people around this table or a teacher's time or a director's time. And that may actually be taking away from that person working on something that's directly impacting students. Not that we don't want to provide information, but we need to be able to be thoughtful of that impact to others and how that affects kids. And then the one that's directly in line with what you asked, which is kind of mutually adhering to that no surprises philosophy and doing our best to maintain a team of 10 and that we're keeping everybody informed and there's no surprises along the way. I think you've seen your first Friday update. And I think that's one way in which we try to make sure there's no surprises coming from the management side to the board side, is that you get an update on what are the events, what are the topics that are important during this particular week, and you get that every week from Superintendent Cordy. And of course, keep all kids at the forefront of what we're doing. We all do. We know you ran for these positions for the same reason, but felt the need to state that. And then really when it comes to your work here within the board meetings, we'd ask that you debate respectfully, debate vigorously, have the conversations you need to have, ask the questions you need to ask. But when it comes time to make a decision, we'd ask that you unite behind that decision. And that once the vote is taken, if it's a vote, that decision is stable and that we can take the decision and go do our work and know that decision is not going to change immediately, that enough conversations happen to make sure that you've arrived at the decision that you are comfortable with and we can go do what we need to do. Which kind of leads to this last one, which is then trust us as professionals and experts in our jobs to go do that work. We are here to serve kids, and we are going to do everything we can to do that as well as we can. And once the board makes a decision and stands behind it, we get to go execute that. And you have a lot of experience, not just with the 5 members sitting here, but across our district. And we have amazing staff from your directors to your teachers, your instructional aides, your bus drivers, your custodians, maintenance team, tech team. They're amazing. And we want strong leadership and the ability to go do our jobs.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Christine, Steve, Gary, Heather, anything you want to add to the comments, the report that Jim just put on the table? Gary, please.
The only thing that I would add is just a clarification around the questions in advance. It's not that we don't want questions in the moment. If a question comes up in the moment, by all means, ask it, because we want to surface whatever we can to get the right decision on the table at the time. It's just helpful if we get those in advance, because some of them might require us to consult with legal counsel or to do some significant calculations or whatever. It depends on what the question is, but the more we know in advance, the better answer we'll be able to provide you. And then it also doesn't feel like a gotcha sometimes also when you ask a really hard question in advance and we can prepare and be thoughtful in our answer. It just works better as a team as well, just for team dynamics.
Thank you. And one of the ones that you mentioned, Jim, was to always remember our collective why. It's about the kids. It's about their experiences and opportunities that we provide as the governance and management team. It reminds me of a school board with whom I work on the East Coast. When you walk into their boardroom, which is not nearly as beautiful as this one, they have a big banner up in front of their board banister like this, and it says, "Let us always remember to keep the main thing the main thing." And that's a pretty good reminder that it's always about kids. And if we keep kids at our forefront, even if we disagree about the how and how much, then we're going to be respectful, because that's what kids deserve. So I appreciate, Jim, your comments, Gary, your clarification. Board members, your initial response to what you heard from management, if you're so inclined to share. Sue, I see you taking your mic. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm being a little bit of a North right now. Couple things. I mean, it strikes me that we're very much in alignment of wanting a lot of the same things. As the board chair and being new in this role, I feel, like I haven't done the job that I need to do, which I will be doing moving forward. And that's, prior to the meetings, checking in with everyone, do you have questions, and making sure that I'm doing my part. Although, board members have been great and they've actually proactively said, I do have a question. But as I look at that, I think there's some tweaks that I need to make as a board member, and remember, some things, so that we're making sure everyone's included and we're getting questions and getting the information out to everyone appropriately. So I'm excited to see that list and be reminded of what I should be doing, and I'll be doing it.
Somebody else was reaching, Jessica, and then Abby, please.
Yeah, I just want to say, I really appreciate the reminder on questions. And I remember being new to this role and having a million questions about everything, because I was super curious all the time, and I'd ask questions and I'd ask them in advance. And one of the things that I really appreciated that I think it was Andy that was the chair at the time, was like, hey, are you aware of, these questions sometimes are interesting information to know versus information I need to know to make a decision, because some of the interesting things to know were, 10 to 15 hour projects for staff. And I just didn't even realize that. So I appreciated at that time, both the board chair and district staff being like, yeah, these are easy ones, or clearly that's a piece of information you need to know to make a decision. And then giving me a heads up when it was that's an interesting question. And maybe that's a work session for us in the future to talk about said topic, as opposed to trying to be ready for that in 5 days. And that's going to be somebody's full-time job between now and then. And so I would just say to fellow board members, be open to the potential that, asking those questions may some of them may be right away and some of them may be later. And that's just, again, from the how to manage. And that was something I had to learn when I was a new board member, because this is all very exciting and it's a lot of responsibility. And I'm just super curious about everything.
Thank you. Abby.
Yeah, I liked two of your guys' though the best that you talked about as being a team of 10, because I think coming into this, we feel very like inferior. We're not the professionals. We're not the ones with all the knowledge. So it sometimes can feel like a little tiny team, and then you guys are this big professional team. And so trying to remember that we're a team of 10 and we need to work together and keep our interests as much as possible aligned is a great reminder. And then the assumption of good intentions, because I think that in general, most people really do have the best intentions, even if you don't agree on the way to get to that or the decisions that are being made. And I think when you work with people with that mindset, it just allows you to give people more grace and understanding. So I hope as a team, that's something that we can all do.
Very well said.
Thanks. That was easy.
Duncan.
Thank you for the list. It's very helpful looking at that, and it makes you a lot more mindful when you're thinking about different things. And I just want to make it clear, and I think I speak for the rest of the board when I say you are the professionals, and this is the best, one of the best, if not the best districts in the entire state. But I want to be clear that when it comes to social issues, political or ideological issues, the parent is the professional. And that's just one of those things that we want to keep an eye on.
Duncan, thank you. Yes, parents come from all kinds of persuasions, and it is our responsibility as a school district, board members and management, to be respectful, to listen, and to share, here's what we do and why we do it and what we're obligated to do as a public school, giving parents lots of opportunity to opt out of certain things, curricular wise or whatever. So yes, that is our responsibility, to be respectful and to engage in dialogue with parents always. So thank you for sharing that. Board members, other responses, reactions to what you have heard from the management team. These will all come back to you, but this is our opportunity to have all 10 team members in the conversation at the same time in an open environment. Please, Krista. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, reiterate what everybody else has said, which is, thank you for the information. I agree a lot with Abby on the assuming good intentions piece. That one really stuck out with me because I definitely think it's something that goes both ways. We haven't had a lot of opportunity to get to know each other yet and to work together yet. But we do all have that one thing in common, which is none of us would be here if we didn't really care about kids. And I think it's great that many of us think so differently from each other. The last thing you want is a group of 10 that all think the same, because then you're never going to get to the best possible outcome for those kids. So I love the assuming good intentions. I think that if we all make a commitment to go into that, into this relationship with that foundation, we're going to be really successful. And if we, create that environment of assuming the good intentions, having transparency, being communicative, and this is essentially a fresh start for this group of people. And so we really can make it what it's going to be. And Duncan, I really appreciate what you said, because that is a big concern, that we hear from parents, and I'm in agreement with that. And so I think that I said this when the board was meeting, just the 5 of us, just because we've been doing something a certain way doesn't mean that that it can't be, that you can't grow, and that you can't modify, and that you can't work together and adapt, right? And get better. That's how you get better. That's literally the definition of getting better. It's not staying stagnant, accepting that, maybe this isn't working. Maybe since we're hearing so much, we need to reevaluate some things. And that comes with, again, having an open mind and assuming that we all are only going to work together and be here because of our commitment to the kids. So I'm really looking forward to this partnership.
Krista, thank you very much. Anybody else that wants to jump in here? Christine, we haven't heard from you. You're good. Anybody else? I'm just a South, just kidding.
I
So
just wanted to add one thing.
Duncan, I'm sorry.
I was like,
Please.
I just wanted to add on what Krista said. No, there's always room for improvement, and we are an incredible district with incredible professionals and teachers. Like I said, this is the best district in the state, but there's always room to improve. And I look forward to working with everybody to improve.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing nobody jump to their microphone, no red lights. Just a couple of comments. I really appreciate both the management and the governance thinking about what you need from each other within your teams and what you need from each other across governance and management. I will put these notes together. They will come back to Sue and Heather, and you will have them and be reminded of them. And if we need to come back and just ask ourselves, how are we doing? Did we really listen to each other? Are we getting what we said we needed from each other's team? And that's going back to what Krista said earlier. That's how we hold ourselves accountable to one another. And that's really important. So one of my takeaways, and I'll put this in my notes as Heather, you and Sue and I debrief, the idea about and I don't know if it was your idea, Abby, or if you were reporting for your team as a whole, but the idea that often we on the professional side of the equation, on the management side of the equation, make erroneous assumptions about the background information board members have or do not have relative to a certain topic. And I am a big believer in work sessions where all the questions get asked, or we do the budget 101, or we look at the K-12 educational program and see what we have and what we're missing and why it looks like we're missing. I want to reiterate what Duncan has said now twice. I work everywhere. Downtown Los Angeles, Chicago public schools, and everywhere in between. And I will tell you, this is hands down an outstanding district by any measure. That is a compliment to the board and to former boards. It is a compliment to the current management team and to Rob and whomever else was here prior to Heather, which seems like a lifetime ago, but wasn't really. What you have is an outstanding school district. How do you take what is and make it better? How do you take what is and say, okay, is it working for everybody? How do we know? What does the data tell us? What are we hearing from parents? And I want to spend just a minute of time talking about that. You all hear from people. And even the new board members, as they jump into the breadth and depth of their new responsibilities, the people in this room will always have more information than anybody else out there. I'm not saying that parents aren't their children's first teacher. They certainly are, and have every right to ask questions and advocate for their kids. And you have more information than anybody else in the public. That is the nature of who you are and what you do on the management and the governance side. You will know more about where the revenues come from and how they can or cannot be spent. You will know more about the demographics of your teachers than anybody else out there. You will know more about the offerings at the high school than anybody else out there unless they study the schedule. So keep that in mind, that you are elected by the public to do the public's work in public, but that you will always have more information than they do. And it's really hard sometimes to bring them along because of the information you are privy to. But it's important for you to say to them, you know, this is the best decision we can make at this time, given the circumstances, and be able to say that knowing that that's a true statement. So keep on keeping on and continue to do good work. So I think Abby mentioned that this team of 10 is a team. It's comprised of 5 members of the governance unit, which has statutory rights and responsibilities, and 5 members of the management team that has contractual and ethical responsibilities on their side of the equation. How do we make sure as we go forward that we appreciate each other, listen to each other, share information with each other, are respectful of each other, and make the best decisions in service to 4,800 plus kids and their families and 500 employees for whom we are also responsible. Someone of the members of the board mentioned contracts and negotiations. And as a former union leader, I will tell you, it is, you know, collective bargaining in the public sector is an animal that is really a strange one. And the more you can know about that and understand that, the better. And a work session simply about that sometime. What's the board's role? What is the current negotiated contract obligate us to? What does the benefit package look like? How often do you do this? That is a really good idea for you to get grounded in just that whole thing about labor relations, because it's a big deal given the number of employees that you have. So going back to this idea of a team of 10, I'm going to be a little bit courageous, and I took a picture out of a color book. I'm not going to ask you to color, but I'm going to ask you to look at this graphic. And I'm I'm an English major. I'm going to tell you what to do with this in just a second. Sorry, Sue. So this little coloring book page has some little people in a tree. That tree represents the school district. If you had to select which of these little people represents you as a team member, propelling this school district forward, as a team, we're trying to reach the peak and propel the organization forward. Which of these caricatures on this coloring book page might represent where you are at the moment? As a team member, okay? Yeah, you got it. So if you had to pick somebody on here, thinking about this team going forward, whom might you be? And notice that there's one little guy off the page at the bottom steadying the rope ladder. So I don't want you to forget about him. So Heather, I might ask you to jump in and say, where are you on this little graphic?
So I think the character that really resonates the most with me right now would be this little person sitting on the big
big
tree.
limb?
Yep. And reaching down. What it looks like to me is
Mhm.
reaching to help. In this case, the little
girl.
that's attempting to get up there. And so for me, what that signifies and what it means to me is just wanting to, on this team of 10, be a support, whatever that looks like, sort of be a conduit, whatever that looks like, and to really help us in an effort to continue to improve and be the very best we can be.
Thank you. Who might like to follow? Abby.
I feel like when I look at this diagram, I feel like this little boy holding the ladder because I tend to want to be someone who's in the middle, not in the middle of things, but connected to everybody or close enough that I feel like I can reach out to them and gauge where they're at. So that kind of resonates with me that that's where he's at. And I feel like very often I am that person that's just kind of studying it a little bit and trying to help somebody along the way a tiny bit. So not the leader by any means, but kind of trying to make that connection for people.
That's great. And doesn't that correspond nicely with your values that you shared earlier? Yeah. Great. Thank you, Abby. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Steve?
Yeah, I'll follow Abby because mine is the same character for many of the same reasons. Holding the ladder. I tend to live out on a limb anyway. And so
no comment.
But yes, I see my role oftentimes in helping others to achieve, to climb, to learn. And so I see myself kind of in that spot.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Anybody else? Gary?
Interestingly enough, I would have probably said the same as Heather for a slightly different reason. Just more that I see a lot of my role is doing things through other people and moving projects forward and sort of getting everybody on board and moving in the same direction is a lot of what I do. I do have to say, I thought about being the boy at the top who looks like he's precarious, sort of holding on for dear life, given the last 18 months we've had and wondering what to do,
Mm,
wondering how he's going to get down. But that's more cynical than what I really mean. It's really more the little boy helping the girl below him and really helping get people on board and moving in the same direction.
perfect. Thank you. Sue?
I guess I see it differently. I see the little girl on the far right, as trying to keep it together, as trying to study the tree, to support everything. And, I want to be the little girl at the top on the limb, and I'm not. I feel like right now I'm trying to help from below and keep everything moving forward and
Propping up the
and
tree.
helping everybody out. Yep.
Yeah. Sue, thank you. Krista?
Well, this might surprise some people, but I identified as the girl climbing the ladder.
The girl climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
That's a new one for us. Okay.
Well, and that's the reason for that is because, I don't pretend to know nearly what I need to know yet, not even close. And so I kind of just saw each rung as a new wealth of knowledge, a new step in settling into this and, finding my way.
Yeah. And moving on up.
Yeah.
As the Jeffersons used to say. Thank you. Thank you, Krista. Duncan?
I guess it's a little bit of two different ones. So I'm the little girl crawling up the ladder. It kind of signifies to me that she's new and learning the ropes and just
Learning the ropes
learning-
figuratively and
She's she's at the beginning of her journey up into the tree, and so that's kind of what I was looking at. But I was also looking at the boy kind of straddling the tree there, kind of looking around, just like, oh, what's over here? What's going on over there? What's so it looks like to me he's observing. So
Yeah,
I kind of
taking it all in.
feel like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Jessica?
I think I'm the person at the bottom. I don't like climbing trees a whole lot because I don't do heights very well. That usually involves me falling out of, and like, no room at the hospital right now. So don't fall out of a tree. So but in all seriousness, I think this person down here that's trying to study things and make it possible for others to climb and do the work. That's why I feel like our job is to make it possible for others to do the work.
Nice. Thank you very much. Jim? You know where I'm coming next, Christine?
I would identify with the young man right in the middle holding the ladder as the operations and facilities person. I'm worried about people's safety. But also, to me, after 25 years in this business, I feel like I know a little bit, but there's so much more to know and to do, and there's more of that ladder to climb. Not the occupational ladder, but just the ladder in terms of knowledge and the ladder of helping others. And so that's the one that speaks to me.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Well, as much as I'd like to be the little boy taking a nap on the far left, because I think that's what I need the most right now, I think I most closely identify with the little girl on the bottom right. My role here is very unique, and as Abby kind of mentioned, I have multiple titles associated with mine. And as a true West, there's about 1,000 details a day that are just constantly getting just kind of dealt with behind the scenes related to my role. And so I think I spent a lot of time just like hanging on for dear life, but also just trying to keep feet on solid ground and provide that stability by making sure all those million little behind the scenes things happen, so that like just the basic functionality of like a board packet going out or a board meeting being live streamed, like
Logistics.
are all happening behind the scenes seamlessly, so that this team can come together and just do their work and not be thinking about all of those little details.
Yeah, it's really important. Really important. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing and for being open to hearing from one another, listening respectfully. And these needs will all come back to you. Sue, as the board chair, is it your desire and the desire of your board counterparts to at some point consider board norms or agreements? Or did you do that with OSBA, or where are you in your thinking about that as a way to, I'm thinking about somebody's word earlier about efficiency. Where are you in your thinking as the leader of the governance folks?
Yeah, it's something that we haven't, I don't think we've talked about specifically. I think we've identified a lot of our potential board norms.
Yep.
We've always had them in the past, and I think it makes sense for our group. And I think we want to align on, these are the things that we're gonna do. So to me, it would be an appropriate next step if everybody's in agreement.
Thank you. Other board members, Jessica, you're probably I guess you're the only other veteran here. Where are you in your thinking about board norms?
I think that they're very helpful. I think, especially when they're generated from among the board and this entire team, it's a way for us to hold each other accountable to agreements that we made and how we're going to do our work and how we're going to do that work collaboratively. And I think that they're very helpful. And we've built them together over time. And I think it's a good opportunity for this board with new members to build whatever our norms are. They don't have to look like ones that we've had in the past, but I do think that they are helpful agreements.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jessica. So what I just handed out are OSBA's sample norms. And one of the things, Sue, that you might do with Heather's support is to spend some time at an upcoming work session where you look at this as a starting point side by side with the norms that you currently have, and with your 3 new board members, decide what norms you want to adopt for your own use with these 3 new board members, so that it's the 5 of you saying, well, I like this, but I'd like to change the wording here, or let's take this from your old working norms. But I think the 5 of you need some time to come back together and say, okay, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable? How are we going to do our work effectively and efficiently? And here's OSBA's suggestions. Let's start there. Let's look at what we currently have and let's come up with our own, and then move forward with the 5 of you owning your own agreements and then sharing them with your management team, just as Heather adapts and adopts new norms every time she gets a new member of her team, so that everybody feels comfortable that they're their norms. Anybody on the management side want to talk with the board, or do you have any thoughts or opinions you want to offer Sue and her colleagues? Heather.
One thing that comes to mind with any group that I am a part of when we're talking about norms is the accountability piece. So, it can be relatively easy to come up with, the things that we say are important to us that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to and hold others accountable to. But the real test is, what do we do? And inevitably it happens. It happens with the best of teams when there are group norms that have been violated, if you will. Like, that's kind of a strong word, but that's where the real test is. And so not just creating norms, but then really having honest conversations about how we'll hold not only ourselves accountable, but hold one another accountable. And those can be hard conversations to have, but hard conversations can happen in a really caring way. And I would, suggest that hard conversations can come from a place of caring, because really trying to help the group be the best that we can be.
Yes, and I think that's a perfect connection back to what Abby and Krista both said about assume good intentions. And if there is a violation of a norm, an agreed upon norm, that's a quiet conversation that starts with help me understand. It's not accusatory, it's help me understand, what just happened here. And I know that that's what you do with your team. So, that's a part of where Sue is on the tree. That's a part of the responsibility of a board chair to have a consensus agreement on the norms and to have some conversation about what happens when norms aren't held to. Does that make sense? Now, what have I missed? Because in a very short period of time, we have traversed miles. So I want to take a minute and talk from my heart to your heart. This is, oh, sorry, Jessica.
Sorry, before we go down that road, I mean, you've heard from Sue and me. This is me trying to bring out my softness, but I'd be really interested in whether the other board members want to pursue some group norms, because I think unless we're all in agreement that we should, I don't want to try and force a conversation.
Force the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Jessica. Abby, you wanted to say?
I mean, I know there's been a couple instances where it wasn't anything major, but where I've asked the question of Sue about, is this the way it has to be, or is this the way it has been? And she's been very honest and said, well, I don't know if it has to be this way, but this is the way that we have done things. And so we need to discuss if that's not the way we're going to continue to do things. We need to have that conversation and decide what that looks like. And so I don't know what all of those things probably need to be, but I think it's reasonable, since it's 5 of us that are new together, to just have that conversation and make sure we are all agreeing that that's what that should look like.
Yes, and if I could just add on, Abby, I didn't listen intently to what the 5 of you were talking about when you talked about what you needed from each other. Those are norms right there. You've
Right.
pretty much identified them. It's a matter of scribing those and then getting an understanding from each of you that these are the right norms for the 5 of you as a collective. And Sue, you were in on that conversation, and so were your colleagues here. So I don't think it would be a heavy lift to go from that conversation to the identification of, and it doesn't have to be in concrete. They can be modified when the 5 of you decide you might want to change them, improve them, modify them, or whatever. Does that make sense? Anybody else? Sue, were you going to jump in? Krista, Duncan, norms, thoughts?
I know, I agree with having norms. I see it kind of like as a standard practice.
It is a standard practice for teams.
You're right. And so just, coming to the collective agreement of what those look like.
Yeah, and at the sake of being redundant, I think you've already identified them as you talked with each other about what you need from each other. It's like, those are norms. Yeah. Duncan?
I have anything to add. I agree.
Great. Thank you. So Sue, I'll be in contact with maybe some ways to proceed and making sure we get that opportunity calendared, and with Christine's help and all of that. So what I'd like to do, I know that you have dinner scheduled. You have been good troopers for the last several hours. You've got a board meeting yet tonight. So I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath because it clears the head. And I want some feedback on what you're taking away from this afternoon, whether or not it was worthwhile, whether or not it was a good use of your time and thought and energy. And then I want to close with some personal thanks, but not before I hear from you. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Heather and Sue for giving me some marching orders about, just what to think about in terms of today, knowing you haven't had a lot of opportunities to be together informally or in ways that allow you to hear from each other. So I'm going to start with you, Heather, because I can. your takeaways from the afternoon and your thoughts about the worthwhileness, et cetera. And anything else you want to add, because of course you will anyway.
Thanks, Peg. So my takeaways from the afternoon, I am taking away the belief that everybody here wants to do the very, very best that we can do together as one team for the students in our care. I think I'm also taking away from this time together that we all are coming from a place of wanting to be the very, very best that we can for each other. And part of that is the assumptions of good intentions. And if there's sort of like an add-on thought about that for me is that if there's ever questions about that, to just have those one-on-one conversations in a caring way with each other. I think that everybody here, I think everybody's heart is in the right place for this work. And I think that anytime that we spend engaged in conversations like this and developing as a team is time really well spent. And Peg, I have a huge appreciation for the person that you are, for all sorts of reasons. And certainly in this setting, the way that you host the conversations and gather feedback and affirm different perspectives and what you hear.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Madam Chair, I'm going to go to you next. Leader that you are.
Yeah. I've been really looking forward to this day for a long time, just because I know that the type of work you do and the conversations that you lead. I'm incredibly encouraged, especially when our group was together. It gives me, it's exciting to me to hear the energy of our new board members and their excitement to look at things from a different filter, a different lens. They're all hungry to learn, and I think that is fantastic. And to bring, the perspective from, parents of children in the district. So I'm really encouraged and excited to build our new norms and not old norms or, whatever those look like, but to do things together. And, I'm excited for that, is spending time together. We just don't get to be 5 of us together, and we haven't had that. So I'm incredibly encouraged at the work we can do. I am really pleased at the level of candor everyone has shared. I think these are difficult conversations to have, to hear or to feel like, wow, I haven't done the best job at this, or I could do this better. Those aren't easy things for all of us to take in, but I'm really excited that on both sides, those types of things were shared and we can learn together. So I'm really excited, all challenges, aside, but really excited to be part of this team and to kind of, feel a bit of a refresh. Just because I've been here 15 years doesn't mean I know everything, or, there's still so much more to learn, and I'm excited to learn from everybody, but especially our newest board members. So thank you so much for this day.
Sue, thank you. Christine, I'm coming to you. Your takeaways from the day. I know it surprised you, but I need to surprise you once in a while because you're such a control person.
I think I kind of resonate with what Dr. Cordianger shared. I think it's good to have an opportunity. I mean, this team in particular really had to hit the ground running this year just because of the unique circumstances we find ourselves in, and then the rapid changes that have happened over the last couple of weeks, I think really threw everyone off. So just to have an opportunity to sit and like share and hear each other, I think is really important because we have a lot of work to do in the year ahead. So I think this was a really grounding moment.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be grounded, isn't it? Doesn't last long, but it's good to be grounded. Thank you. Duncan?
I just think it's very eye-opening to hear the other side and understand where they're coming from. And it's good to know that a lot of the things that they listed, you know, me personally, I was already kind of going down that road. So that's good to know. It's a big weight lifted off. And I really respect what you guys do. I'm not going to pretend to even understand what it is that you guys do. And I'm just looking forward to learning more and working with everybody. So.
Duncan, thank you very much. I'm going to come over here to Mr. Rose.
Thank you. My takeaway, I think, is that just the keen interest in gaining knowledge by the board is great. And for me, there's an underlying assumption, understanding that that new knowledge is what will help guide the decisions that are made. And that's kind of reassuring now that we have 3 new board members.
Thank you so much, Jim. Jessica?
So what I'm taking away is just the love of learning that isn't just about what our teachers and kids do in the classrooms. It's also really feels like very embedded in this group too. Just the desire to learn about these roles and to be committed to continuous improvement. And this sense of the importance of assuming good intent. There's this old saying, you can't really know where you're going until you know, where you've been and why you got here. And I think that is so true in this role. And I might have been here a while, but I continue to learn about how we got to wherever we were, and the importance of taking the time to do that, which is a challenge for this North person right here, but the importance of doing that so that we can then make the right decisions going forward with enough information to do that in a way that is, again, acknowledges the good intent of how we got here, and the goal of continuous improvement so we achieve excellence. So I just really want to thank everybody today, and I really my hope going forward is that we really center ourselves in these words, these things that we've exchanged today. This team of 10 remains a team, and that we really commit ourselves to the things that have been captured on the charts, but that we continue to ground ourselves and to support each other and really staying true to those values.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Stevie Wonder?
Well, I think I have more South in me than Heather gives me credit for, because I really love this work. I have always enjoyed just team building. I think there's huge value in that. I've appreciated learning to know each of you, your hearts a little bit more today, because I hadn't had that opportunity. So that's been good. I am excited just to learn together, because I'm excited to share the work we do, to give you a deeper understanding of what that is. But I'm also really excited to learn from your perspectives and what that's going to bring to the conversations.
Thank you, Steve. Krista, your takeaways?
I don't know if I have much to say that's new at this point, because I resonate with something that everybody here has said, but I'll just also add that I enjoyed this time. I'm just somebody who really likes to get to know people and where they're coming from and why they think the way they do. And, I'm a very direct person. I'm not going to That's no secret. I just kind of spit out whatever is in my head, which is good and bad. But it is just who I am. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to sit here and go through these exercises and have each and every one of us get to see a little piece of each other that we probably didn't know was there. And because that's going to help our team in the long run. So that's my takeaway, my
Krista.
main takeaway.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. Not a ton new to add. It's just good to get to know those of you who are new on the board that I don't know, and to get to know the people I do know a little bit better. Couple of takeaways for me. One is the number of Norths on the board. I mean, that's just like a true takeaway. And as an East who always wants to think about the decision before we make it, that's a little bit unnerving to me, to be honest with you. But in all reality,
I see the sweat popping out in your
I
forehead.
see that I say that in jest, and it's just worth noting though. And Heather's laughing at me because she's like, "Here he goes again." And I really like that we had similar needs and we're keyed in on this positive assumptions thing, because if we're working at learning together and have positive assumptions, I think we can really model things for our kids and for our community in the way that people are supposed to work together to come to the right solutions for people. And I think somehow we've lost our way in society a little bit about that. And I think we have a real opportunity here to move forward with our work, move forward for kids, move forward for this community, and do it in a really positive way. And I just have one question outstanding that I'm not seeking an answer to, but I think it's worth. And it was the need from the board around time to make decisions. And something I'm thinking about is, how do we balance the need for time to make decisions with the crazy nature of the world right now, which requires us to make rapid decisions sometimes because the world is changing. And honestly, that's been a big struggle for us all through COVID is, we have not had time to make the decisions we wanted to make. We've had to make them because school is opening in 2 weeks and the rules just changed. And so just thinking through that from the board's perspective of what we can do to sort of balance those two things out. So I guess I did have a few things to say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gary. And I think that's a really valid point that that's almost a conversation that's ongoing because so many things are changing so quickly, and that maybe isn't going to end soon. So that idea of how do we keep everybody in the loop and how do we make as good a decisions as we can, given the nature of the beast. Sue.
Well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, there is an understanding that things are going to happen really rapidly. We talked about on our side that as things happen, that could be a quick text that, we're still 2 weeks away from school. I don't think that type of thing is our intention. I think it was more of a conversation of, there are things that go out, on behalf of the board that we want to make sure that we have time to our knowledge about, things that, like Abby mentioned that maybe, I think that was another board thing that maybe there was something missing. So it's not everything for sure. This isn't about the board wanting to be micromanagers, but I think just there have been times where, you get the information and it's out. So just maybe a little bit of time, especially things related specifically to or on behalf of the board.
Thanks, Sue. And Abby, your takeaways from today?
I take away a lot of the same team building ideas that everybody else takes away. I thought it was really helpful to honestly reflect a little bit more personally about my values and the way I communicate and the way I move forward with tasks. Sometimes it's really easy to forget the type of person that you are. And I think, I was telling Jessica, because she said, "Oh, look at, you're being so East." And I said, "Oh gosh, I spent so much time, I remember in grad school trying to redirect some of those energies, and this was a very useful reminder that we need to kind of look around the room and make sure we're not always being just one way and acknowledging everybody else." So that would probably be my biggest takeaway, but I wanted to thank you as well. I know Dr. Cordy did as well, but I've sat through tons of classes, lots of trainings, and I found you to be a tremendous facilitator. I thought you were direct and concise and had tons of knowledge. You were enjoyable to listen to. I felt like it was a super worthwhile training. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It is my privilege to be with each of you and all of you. So before we take a break, I just want to remind you, we should probably get, I don't know, baseball caps or polo shirts that say Team of 10, because that is really what this has to be going forward. And going back to what Sue said in her takeaways, we have to have hope, you guys. Hope that we can be a good team, hope that things in the world will get better so that we have more time for reflection and good quality decisions in service to 5,000 kids and 500 employees and the entire community. So I want to thank you for your time and attention. And for the new board members, thank you so much for your willingness to serve. You know, being a board member is a thankless job, and it is so necessary. So thank you for your interest, and thank you for caring about everybody's kids and your community. And thank you for being supportive of this management team who works their butts off in service to your policies and state and federal guidelines, and most importantly, in service to your employees and kids. And you have and will continue to have the best school district in Oregon. And I've worked in a lot of them, including Portland. So, you know, carry on. Heather, Sue, thank you so much for the invitation. And I look forward to continuing the conversation and getting these things back to you. Final comments, Sue, Heather, before we break. Christine, thank you for everything logistically. You're just the best.
I have one more thing, if it's okay, right at the end. It just occurred to me that something that didn't go up on our boards, but that is a hope of mine as we conclude our work. This board is different than the last board, and I am excited to have my new colleagues with us and this new team of 10. And I really am hopeful that as we develop these norms and these agreements and we work together, that we can really show this community that you can have a vigorous debate and different opinions, and we can do that respectfully and together, and we can show what good governance and good government should look like.
And
to the public.
civility.
And civility and kindness, all of the things that are just, I mean, you can't Google school board and not see a video of the crowd erupting or the board erupting or a disagreement. And I think we have sayings in Sherwood athletics about the Sherwood way, that the Sherwood way is to do so with excellence and class and with just really being the very best we can. And I just really would love to see us develop the Sherwood way and maintain this board, having strong information shared, vigorous debate, unifying around decisions, doing all of that together, I think is such a great opportunity for us to be able to show our community that we can step up and work together. And that just because we disagree doesn't mean that we can't do so together and civilly. So that is, it didn't come up today. And I just, before we left, really wanted to say that that's on my heart, and I hope that we can be an example, not just in this district, but really statewide, of what good governance looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, dinner should be ready already in the auxiliary room as soon as we adjourn this work session.